In this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how I did the ruffles for the bottom of my Lolita dress. So as you can see, one of the edges I'm going to do a rolled hem, and then on the other side I'm going to serge it and then ruffle it along the top. So you can do this process by hand, but I'm going to show you using the machine. I am using a rolled hem foot to make my life way easier. And I also started by measuring the hem of my dress to see how long it is. And then I took that measurement and I multiplied it by 3. And that's the length of the strips that I needed to cut out. So I cut out a bunch of strips of my leftover fabric until I had enough that was the length of 3 times the bottom of my hem. So for my ruffles, I chose to make them 9 centimeters wide, and the final product will end up being about 6.5 of what you'll see at the bottom of the dress. Okay, so I'm going to start off by rolling the one side of my fabric using the roller foot. You could do this by hand by pressing twice. It's such a pain in the butt though. If you really don't want to roll the one side of your hem that will be along the bottom of the dress, you could serge it as well, which would work, just to keep it from fraying. So to use a roller foot, sometimes I kind of take shortcuts. So my method of doing this, which isn't necessarily the right method, is I kind of just fold the fabric over once and press it with my hands, and then I just kind of jam the fabric in there until it's close enough, and quick and dirty way. So sometimes I like to move my needle over to the right a little bit as well. I find it just works a little bit easier. And I like to use a long stitch length for this. So, alright. So I get the fabric started a little, and then I just have to tug a little bit until it's able to catch in the presser foot. Okay, so now the rolled hem is starting to curl it around. So while it rolls, especially at the first bit, I have to kind of adjust. I like to fold the edge over until it starts rolling on its own. Alright, so now I have a semi-decent rolled edge, and then this is what the other side looks like. So the other side looks pretty nice. Since this was kind of a rush job, it's a little bit rough on the other side. Usually I would take my time just a little bit to make sure that it's lined up really nice. So now that the one side is finished, I want to go back to my regular foot. And for the other side of the fabric, I like to just do a quick zigzag stitch because this fabric frays quite a bit. So that will lock it in a little bit so it doesn't fray as much. So the next thing I'm going to show you is how to actually change this into a ruffled piece of fabric for my dress. So I'm just going to trim off these edges quickly. Okay, so for the second step, what I'm going to do to turn it into beautiful ruffles, I set my machine to a regular stitch. And I made it a really long stitch length. So basically you're going to do a basting stitch. So for this step, what I did was along the edge where I did the zigzag stitch just to seal it a little bit. I did 2 runs of base stitching along the top. So I made these 2 runs of base stitching parallel pretty much. So make sure that when you base stitch along the top twice, you don't cross the lines. Another thing that's important for this step is do not backstitch at the beginning. So you can see I just ran it through my sewing machine twice, and do not backstitch. So for this step, what you want to do is find at the back of your fabric the threads from where you did the base stitching. So you want to use this, the threads that are on the bottom of the fabric, okay? So not the thread that comes out of your needle, but the thread that comes from underneath your machine. And just kind of tightly hold on to those threads. And then what you should be able to do is just slowly slide the fabric down on those threads. So you just want to keep kind of sliding and pulling along. And as you can see, what starts to happen is your fabric starts to get a nice little gathering there. So you just want to keep kind of like sliding your fabric down towards the middle on those threads. So it just takes a little bit of playing around. So once I get kind of around the middle of my piece of fabric, I go to the other side and I grab the threads and start doing the same thing on that side of the fabric, just so I get an even gather on both sides. So again, you could do this by hand without a machine. It would just mean base stitching your fabric by hand, which is really a pain in the butt. But yeah. All right, so same thing, just start pulling the threads. And you want to keep moving the fabric down. Okay, so after you do that, you'll get a piece of fabric that looks like this. So we've got on the one side our nice rolled hem, and that'll be on the bottom of your dress. So this is what the right side of the fabric looks like. You've got the really nice roll on the end, and then at the top, you have your fabric all pulled in. Try to move it around until it's nice and even, so that you have your beautiful ruffle. So this is the final product of what the frills look like on the bottom of the dress. To finish up the frills, what I did was I connected all of the different lengths. So I just serged all the lengths together until it was like one long strip along the bottom. And then I serged the ruffles onto the bottom of the hem as well, so that it's connected along the bottom. If you don't have a serger, that's fine. Even a zigzag stitch will do. Serger was nice for this fabric because it frays quite a bit. So you can see on the bottom is my rolled hem. So that goes on the bottom of the dress there, is the rolled hem along the bottom. Again, if you don't have a rolled foot, you could just serge the bottom as well, would work. So you can see underneath the dress is my little petticoat. I actually have 2 petticoats just to really give the dress that nice kind of Lolita silhouette. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask at the bottom.